understood, boy. I am from the hood, boy. Came up from the dirt. Self-made hustler, I'm a beast. I'm a beast. I'm surrounded by all these devil mouths. They talking about kales. Some say I came from heaven, but I rose up from hell. So get it understood, boy. I am from the hood, boy. Came up from the dirt. Self-made hustler, I'm a beast. I'm a beast. I'm surrounded by all these devil mouths. They talking about kales. Some say I came from heaven, but I rose up from hell. And ever since I rose up, success has been my sail. So call the hits my lawyer.
Last week, a feminist called Emily Linden announced on Twitter that she was, quote, not at all concerned about innocent men losing their jobs in the search for perpetrators of sexual harassment. Quote, if some innocent men's reputations have to take a hit in the process of undoing the patriarchy, that is a price I am absolutely willing to pay. Why wouldn't you be horrified by what this woman wrote?
Well, she was defending it, saying that it would be wrong, but microscopic in the sense that what happens to women and women's reputations is so much worse than what would happen to a man's reputation. Women's reputations are destroyed constantly on a daily basis,
so facts don't really matter. So in other words, she's saying you should respect me when I make the case that facts don't really matter?
Well, maybe she's trying to say let's level the playing field, and men are finally feeling the pain that women have felt for a long time, for centuries.
And that's good.
Well,
"2 years ago, a silent coup began to undermine our constitutional republic by overthrowing our judicial system using social media, journalists, and the news media as a propaganda machine to push fraud on the American people. The United States of America is under attack by terrorists, not foreign terrorists, but domestic terrorists wearing lipstick, skirts, high heels, and carrying purses. Feminist movements and the women's movements of the 60s and 70s have morphed into rogue, cyber, feminist terrorists who commit hate crimes against rich, powerful men for the purpose of tearing down the power structure in this country, to undo the patriarchy, and to revamp it so women control the power. Circumventing our judicial system, ignoring laws, and violating the constitutional rights of every American in this country, they have used women in powerful positions to push a narrative on this country and use social media to bully, terrorize, and control the American people. I have put together this docuseries to methodically break down step by step how the Women's March, January 21st, 2017, protesting Donald Trump's presidency, has grown into this rogue domestic terrorism, and how laws are broken, constitutional rights are being ignored, and Americans are bullied and held hostage. Time's Up, Me Too, funded by rich, powerful women, have become domestic feminist terrorists. Their target, rich, powerful men. We will examine the high-profile case of R&B icon RKELLY to examine step by step how women are the ones breaking the law, usurping our judicial process, violating constitutional laws, and holding every American hostage by these feminist domestic terrorists.
But here's what we know is that people are flawed, And
right?
most people tell the truth, but not everybody does. And that's why we have things like due process and a justice system that tries to determine objectively who is guilty and who is innocent and punishes only the first category. And she's suggesting, and a lot of other people like you are suggesting, just throw that out because everybody who makes an accusation is telling the truth when we know that's not true.
Well,
like, I don't want to live in the world you're describing. Do you really want to?
No, like I said, I mean, social injustice, and I don't believe in that, but I'm saying let's live in a world with everyone's reputations at stake, not just women. Not just women are called names, not just women's reputations are at stake. There aren't just witch hunts. Let's have the wizard hunts. Let's have everyone burned at the stake, if anyone's going to burn at the stake.
So get it understood, boy. I am from the hood, boy. Came up from the dirt, self-made hustler. I'ma be. I'm surrounded by all these devil mouths. They talking about kills. Some say I came from heaven, but I rose up from hell.
Always I heard, you're innocent until proven guilty. I've heard this for so long, and it's such a beautiful phrase. In this case, you're guilty until proven innocent. I think that is a very, very dangerous standard for our country.
January 9th, 2019, after watching a television show, State's Attorney Kim Foxx held a press conference to solicit the public for victims and evidence to see if there was a crime that had occurred based off of her watching a TV show, Surviving R. Kelly.
The recent allegations against entertainer R. Kelly and the recent Lifetime docuseries are deeply, deeply disturbing. It is our job here at the Cook County State's Attorney's Office to investigate claims in the interest of justice and of public safety. I'm here today to encourage victims of sexual assault or domestic violence related to these allegations to please get in touch with our office. Please come forward. There is nothing that can be done to investigate these allegations without the cooperation of both victims and witnesses. We cannot seek justice without you.
There were no victims, there were no crimes, there were no open cases that Robert Kelly was being investigated for. There was nothing pending legally, no complaints filed. The DA has access to police reports all around the country, and with a computer search, Kim Foxx knew she had absolutely nothing to charge R. Kelly with. So she set up a hotline after doing her press conference, and she stated in her casting call, "We cannot do this without you. Any possible victims of domestic violence or sexual assault by R. Kelly, contact the office. There's nothing that can be done to investigate these allegations without cooperation of both victims and witnesses. We cannot seek justice without you. We need victims to tell their stories." That says this is an innocent man in all 50 states. We have absolutely nothing, but we want to find something. Everyone, please call our hotline. Her press conference, January 2019, began an onslaught of fraudulent, fake calls from people wanting fame and money.
Joining us now is Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx. Thank you for being here.
Ms. Foxx, we have to ask you, how many calls have you gotten since your press conference yesterday?
In less than 24 hours, we've had numerous phone calls.
And what happens when somebody calls?
So someone calls, tells us, what information they have, whether they're a witness or whether there's something that's happened to them. We then put them in touch with someone from our office, either through victim witness or through our investigations unit.
Right. Now, you have seen the docuseries.
I have.
And what are your initial thoughts?
I watched the series as someone who has lived in Chicago my whole adult life, worked at the State's Attorney's Office during the original trial, so it wasn't that some of the allegations were new related to pre-2008, but watching and listening to the women who said that they were survivors of what happened. It was heartbreaking. It was sickening. Again, these are allegations, and that is why it's important that we recognize that this is not, we don't have an open investigation because of the docuseries, but if there were people who have been impacted or affected, we certainly believe that we should know about that and do an investigation if warranted.
There were no victims, there was no evidence, there was no crime. So that means everything that happened before January 9th, 2019 was illegal. In the eyes of the law in all 50 states, R. Kelly and every American is presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law. Evidence from 1994 says there was a marriage license and an annulment that's sealed, but none of those documents were ever verified or validified. If any of these documents are legal, that has to be proven in front of a judge in a court of law. We also hear there were settlements out of court, signed NDAs. Again, nothing has been verified. Who signed the checks? Who made these agreements? We know that a star of R. Kelly's caliber does not deal with all of his financial matters. In 2008, there was a trial, and he was acquitted. So for all purposes based on American law, Robert Kelly was 100% innocent of everything as of January 2019. The American Bar Association Rules of Ethics 3.6 state, you should not take a case if you're affected in any personal way and not permit personal interests to affect your judgment in any case. Fox stated in front of the press after watching a TV show that she was sickened, repulsed. I too was a victim of molestation, she said. This is a bias, and from that moment on, she proved she could not do her job equitably. She could not be fair. She did not have the mental acuity, and her judgment was compromised. Rule 3.8 for prosecutor statements in public state, refrain from making extrajudicial comments that heighten public condemnation. To publicly say she is sickened, she is repulsed, I too was a victim, says these people are victims. And in order for there to be a victim, there has to be a perpetrator. When you say, I too am a victim, there's a presumption that these people that were on a TV show who she'd never met, no lie detector tests were given, they're victims too, which by default presumes Mr. Kelly's guilt. This absolutely violates his constitutional rights. It prevents him from having a fair trial. It taints public perception, from which a jury pool will be selected. And it taints the jury pool automatically. She then referred to Mr. Kelly in text messages as a pedophile. That is a presumption of guilt. She broke the law. When you say someone is a pedophile who has not been in front of a judge, who has not had his case heard, that is a presumption of guilt, and it violates the law in all 50 states.
Chicago Tribune reports that State's Attorney Kim Foxx sent text messages to her top deputy, Joseph Maggots, calling Smollett a washed-up celeb, but also said that compared to R&B star R. Kelly, Smollett had been overcharged. Quoting here, pedophile with 4 victims, 10 counts. Washed-up celeb who lied to cops, 16, meaning counts. In the messages, Foxx acknowledges having recused herself, but is clearly still involved. Quoting, just because we can charge something doesn't mean we should. Maggots responds, quote, agreed. We can get a hard look at how we charge the cases and get it to something that covers what needs to be covered without being excessive and ultimately pointless.
At the time of these statements and texts, Kim Foxx had zero proof of any crime. She had zero proof that anyone was a victim. Yet publicly, she made Robert Kelly, the artist R. Kelly, appear guilty before ever talking to anyone. This is illegal, this is unconstitutional, and everything that happened prior to that broke the law.
So get it understood, boy. I am from the hood, boy. Came up from the dirt, self-made hustler. I'ma be. I'm surrounded by all these devil mouths. They talking about kills. Some say I came from heaven, but I rose up from hell.
What we gonna do? You are Kelly! When we gonna do it? Now!
Last year, 2 women in Atlanta started a campaign called Mute R. Kelly, and they've succeeded in driving down ticket sales for his concerts. At least 8 tour dates have been canceled.
We want him either in the poorhouse or the jailhouse.
When did it actually start?
It started in June 2017. So right when the accusations of what the media was calling the sex cults came out, I saw it that day on the news. I was actually sitting in my office on the computer. The TV was on. I heard that and I was like, what's R. Kelly doing? Like, I hadn't heard anything about R. Kelly in a long time.
Right.
So I got on Google and just kind of, started looking and realized that although I hadn't been hearing about it, almost every year, every other year, more people were coming out. More people were filing charges. More people were talking about the abuse and the sexual abuse of the underage girls.
In 2002 allegations resulted in a 2008 trial where Mr. Kelly was acquitted. Decades later, there were rumors of a cult. The investigators went to the home and found nothing, so this was unsubstantiated. As of February 2019, Mr. Kelly in all 50 states was 100% innocent, and Kim Foxx substantiates that when she does her press conference. Mute R. Kelly, since 2017, took aggressive and egregious actions to cut R. Kelly's ability to earn money nationally and internationally in their Mute R. Kelly campaign. Mute R. Kelly stopped concerts, stopped streaming of R. Kelly's music in the United States and around the world, and demanded Sony release him based on gossip, rumor, and a fraudulent TV show with 0 evidence, 0 victims, 0 crimes, that never saw the inside of a courtroom, where 90% of the truth was omitted conveniently to defraud America.
So kind of just a little bit about what we have done and probably why he hasn't done any more tours in the United States. Since Mute R. Kelly, he's had 11 concert cancels, 8 active protests around the country, and an estimated $1.7 million lost revenue. Right. We're not overly concerned about lawsuits because, as you stated, I think the last place he wants to be is inside of an open court.
A financial or economic boycott only applies to crimes that have been committed. You have to be able to prove in a court of law, in front of a judge, with a preponderance of evidence that you did a financial or economic boycott, crimes were committed, and you could substantiate that with evidence beyond reasonable doubt. It is a hoax, it is fraud, slander, defamation, vigilante terrorism to conduct a financial boycott, an economic boycott based on rumor, based on gossip, when the law in this country is crystal clear. You are to be presumed innocent. Mute R. Kelly broke the law unquestionably. The Fourth Amendment right states no court order, no government has the right to unreasonably seizure of property. Stopping R. Kelly's career, his music, his concerts is, in fact, unreasonable seizure of property. Music, songs, concerts, his job at Sony, his intellectual property, are all physical and financial, tangible assets. That's why you copyright it, to protect your property. The Fifth Amendment right states no person shall be deprived of property, not have property taken without due process. Taking music off Spotify, cancel concerts, demanding Sony drop him, deprived R. Kelly of due process. It is the seizure of property. If it's illegal for the United States government to seize property, what legal right did Mute R. Kelly have to stop the concerts and the music of an innocent man in all 50 states in this country? In the United States of America, in all 50 states, you are to be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law. It is not your burden to prove your innocence. It is the burden of an accuser to prove your guilt. Mute R. Kelly broke the law. Mute R. Kelly are criminals. And anyone that hashtag Mute R. Kelly broke the law, they are criminals.
Can you separate the man from the art?
I sure can. I mean, if he need to be punished, punish him. I mean, I ain't gonna say he did it because you ain't innocent until you proven guilty, so.
Sex offenders and pedophile and rapists to be performing up in here.
Arithmetic. Kim Foxx's plea to the public, January 8th, 2019, is irrefutable proof. There were no open cases, there were no crimes, there were no pending litigation, there were no victims. Mute R. Kelly hijacked our judicial process. They violated 6th, 7th, 8th Amendment rights of R. Kelly. They violated his due process rights to a formal procedure to ensure there's actually a real case, real victims, a real crime. They denied an innocent man his 1st, 4th, 5th Amendment rights as an American. Additionally, they violated the rights of all Americans to listen to his music and to attend his concerts and to support R. Kelly. The First Amendment rights do cover music. It is your right to hear all sides of every issue. It is your right to hear any music that you want and attend concerts. It is your right to make your own judgment without governmental interference and without control. You have the right to support anyone that you choose. Mute R. Kelly usurped government's jurisdiction. They violated every American's First Amendment rights to attend concerts, to listen to music, and to support R. Kelly, to have access to R. Kelly. If anyone supported R. Kelly, demanded to listen to his music, demanded to attend concerts, demanded their First Amendment rights as Americans, they were cyberbullied. Accounts were reported. They were called R. Kelly sympathizers, enablers, pedophile sympathizers. They were threatened, harassed. They lost jobs, forced to shut down and block their social media accounts, forced to start new pages because they wanted to be law-abiding citizens and presume R. Kelly innocent.
Y'all that are still R. Kelly fans, okay, cheering him and his sex crimes on, all right? And I honestly think the ones that support him are even worse, okay? And they should be locked up with his ass too. Because if y'all will let his ass get away with raping these little black girls that don't nobody else care about, including y'all will let your own daughters and nieces get raped too. Probably letting them go down right now as we speak. But I'm so glad that he's out of money, and I don't care how many of Michael Jackson's ex-lawyers that he tries to hire but can't afford.
This is textbook terrorism. Because it's on U.S. soil, it is domestic terrorism. And because it took place by feminists, it is domestic feminist terrorism. It violates our First through Eighth Amendment rights of all Americans and R. Kelly to mute an innocent man's music, to stop an innocent man's concerts, to bully, to harass anyone that supported this man without a victim, without a court of law, without a court order, without a judge, without evidence, is illegal in the United States. Mute R. Kelly broke the law. They committed terrorism. They incited unlawful behavior of others when they decided to hashtag Mute R. Kelly and bully people into doing that. They incited illegal behavior when they demanded others join them in their illegal acts. To break the law, to violate constitutional rights, and to deprive Robert Kelly of his due process. With zero evidence, zero judges, zero courts, zero victims, zero crimes, zero due process, Mute R. Kelly took the law into their own hands. Their vigilante, rogue, feminist, domestic terrorism has taken over the United States and overseas. We are in a constitutional crisis.
So get it understood, boy. I am from the hood, boy. Came up from the dirt, self-made hustler. I'm surrounded by all these devil mouths. They talking about kales. Some say I came from heaven, but I rose up from hell.
Breaking news now on celebrity attorney Michael Avenatti. A federal grand jury in Manhattan has just indicted him in 2 alleged schemes, one involving his former client, Stormy Daniels.
So the government, of course, had to put forward the official indictment before the end of the month. When it comes to the Nike extortion case, they're accusing Michael Avenatti of extorting Nike for more than $20 million. That is one case. What is new and unexpected is this other charge, 2 charges, one of fraud and one of aggravated identity theft. That involves, as they call it, victim 1, who turns out to be Stormy Daniels.
Michael Avenatti, creepy porn lawyer, came into prominence representing adult porn star Stormy Daniels in her attempt to extort money from the President of the United States. Stormy attended a golf tournament at Trump's golf course where rich, powerful men would be in attendance. then tried to sell her story to news outlets. Trump sued her, won, and she was ordered to pay almost $300,000 in damages. Disgraced Avenatti failed in his attempt to bring down the President of the United States. He got his ass handed to him in public and had got an ass whooping, so he had to find a new target to salvage his name. R. Kelly became his new obsession. Avenatti appeared in the media making claims that potentially obstructed justice and violated constitutional rights of R. Kelly. He allegedly handed a sex tape of R. Kelly over to CNN to review before securing the evidence and turning it over to the courts.
We are following breaking news about R&B singer R. Kelly. Attorney Michael Avenatti says he has a videotape allegedly showing Kelly engaging in graphic sex with an underage girl. CNN has viewed this tape in question, and CNN's Sarah Seidner is following this for us in Los Angeles. Also here with us is CNN legal analyst and criminal defense attorney Joey Jackson. Sarah, first, what do we know? How did Avenatti get this alleged tape?
It's not something that I know, and it's not something that he is certainly revealing at this point in time.
The United States District Court for the Southern District of New York has charged the lawyer for attempting to extract more than $20 million in payments from a publicly traded company, Nike, by threatening to use his ability to garner publicity to inflict substantial financial and reputational harm on the company if his demands were not met. Avenatti allegedly said that 90% of what is going on to be bullshit, because it's always bullshit. 90% of the time, always, whether it's R. Kelly or Trump, the list goes on and on. But 10% of it is actually going to be true. And then what's going to happen is this is going to snowball. Avenatti admitted only 10% of what he alleged against R. Kelly was true, and 90% was bullshit. He used his ability to garner publicity to inflict substantial financial and reputational harm on R. Kelly strictly to save his ass. Facing 36-count indictments and up to 333 years in prison if convicted, he executed a scheme to defraud 5 clients, one of whom was a paraplegic, who he allegedly withheld $4 million settlement from, and 2 additional scams charging him with fraud and aggravated identity theft for his treatment of ex-client Stormy Daniels. Avenatti agreed to work with the feds to bring down R. Kelly to get his charges reduced. His unscrupulous behavior breaks laws and violates constitutional rights of R. Kelly. It taints the potential jury pool and sways public opinion. He has a history of fraudulent behavior. The news media, specifically CNN, assisted Avenatti by describing a tape that had not been verified, had not been seen by R. Kelly's legal team, had not been secured as evidence, essentially tampering with evidence, violating numerous constitutional rights of R. Kelly, and potentially tainting a jury pool, and inciting unlawful behavior from all Americans by painting this man as they described what they interpreted to be on the tape as salacious. They broke the law.
I have not yet seen the videos that the federal government is talking about. I know that there's sworn testimony from the young lady that was involved in the Cook County charges supposedly years ago, sworn testimony that it wasn't her, sworn testimony from her parents that it wasn't her. I don't know that the government would bring a charge based on people who are known to have, I guess they'd be saying they perjured themselves before, but we haven't gotten any of the evidence yet, so we got to look at it. Very convoluted, very complex.
You can start a rumor on a guy like me or a celebrity just like that. All you have to do is push a button on your phone and say, so-and-so did this to me. R. Kelly did this to me. And if you get any traction from that, if you're able to write a book from that, if you're able to get a reality show, then any girl that I had a relationship in the past that it just didn't work out, she can come and say the same exact thing.
Are you blaming this on social media?
I'm talking about the power of social media.
Mainstream media perpetrates this illegal term, victim and survivor, for any female with the story when no crime has even been determined, no evidence, no case before a judge, no mental health evaluation, no lie detector tests, with zero verification. For example, Gayle King stated on air after a female told a story, had no evidence and never had a case before a judge, "We must believe women." Oprah's best friend, of whom financially support Me Too and Time's Up, which means both have vested interests in the groups, tells America to believe women. There's no law that says believe women. The law says you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. It is not your burden to prove your innocence. King asked R. Kelly, "Are all these women lying? Why would all these women lie?" Then proceeded to name each female's name. She placed the burden of proof on R. Kelly and presumed his guilt when she did this.
Name the names: Andrea Kelly, your ex-wife; Kitty Jones, Lisa Van Allen, Lisette Martinez, Geronda Pace, Faith Rogers, Asante McGee. You're saying everything they said in that documentary about you is not true.
They are lying on me.
I have to tell you, it's so hard to believe that based on all that we've read
I'm gonna tell
and
you
what the
something,
women
Gail.
have
There's
said
one
about you.
I'm gonna
What
tell
the
you
women have
something.
said about you.
What women said about me. What women. So nobody's allowed to be mad at me and be scorned and lie on me.
R. Kelly, you do. When I listen to you,
I'm
it
just
does
telling
sound
the
like
truth.
you're playing the victim
I'm just
card.
telling the truth. And the reason I'm emotional,
Robert,
and I apologize for that,
No,
is
no,
because
no,
this
no.
is the first time I was able to say
speak.
something. I've said nothing.
Then aired a clip of him responding emotionally to this public persecution and referred to him as unhinged, unstable. They replayed that moment over and over. Gayle King, CBS, violated constitutional rights. They broke the law in all 50 states doing this. They incited unlawful behavior, making him appear guilty. They tainted a potential jury pool. They essentially brainwashed, programmed, and manipulated Americans to ignore the law, to circumvent our judicial system, to violate due process, all while she accused R. Kelly of breaking the law.
I think what you did, Gail, was allow him to tell his story and to see, though, his behavior, his temperament, is, I think, what is probably what is most revealing of this interview as well. The pounding of the fist, the getting up. I was worried about you. I was actually worried about you when I saw the pictures.
Well, it's funny. Favorite son, favorite daughter, and Oprah all called me and said, "Were you afraid? Did you think he was going to hit you?" I actually never thought that. I think that I thought I might get accidentally clobbered, but I didn't think that he would deliberately try to hurt me. I never felt in danger talking to him.
So get it understood, boy. I am from the hood, boy. Came up from the dirt, self-made hustler. I'm a bee. I'm a bee. I'm surrounded by all these devil mouths. They talking about kills. Some say I came from heaven, but I rose up from hell.
I asked Kubrat for a post-fight interview. He said yes. I conducted the interview in a backstage area inside his tent. I started the interview. Mid-interview, he grabbed my face and kissed me. I was immediately shocked and embarrassed and didn't know how to respond.
So if Tyson Fury gets through Tom Schwartz, do you think you should have a shot?
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It made me feel uncomfortable and frustrated that Kubrat Pulev would treat me in such an unprofessional manner.
Wait, fuck, there's no video, right?
Later that night, a friend invited me to an after party. There was an opportunity to interview more fighters, and therefore I decided to go. Mr. Pulev did not join until the very end of the night. He acted like nothing happened, but later at the party, he asked me to remove the kiss from the interview.
Groupies, gold diggers, social climbers, opportunists have been around as long as rich, powerful men. We know the difference between a victim and a gold digger, a survivor or a groupie. Your behavior will tell us who you are, not your words. If you have cancer, you go to a doctor, therapist, treatment center, specialist who can help you solve the problem. You don't go to hair, makeup, wardrobe on a TV series, do talk shows, radio, reality TV, and write books. You don't seek fame over solutions. Real victims of sexual abuse generally shun the spotlight as they seek real solutions. They go to doctors, therapists, police, judges, courts. They have litigation pending. They have evidence. Groupies are synonymous with music. Sex, drugs, rock and roll is the moniker for the music industry. Gold diggers, social climbers, opportunists hunt rich, powerful men to have sex, to get pregnant, to have an ATM baby, which means they get a check, to audition to be the mistress, to get their bills paid, or to just be a fuck buddy and have sex for status, to be able to say they had sex with a rich, famous, powerful man. They don't want to work a job or get an education to take care of themselves. Their 9 to 5 is finding a wealthy man to take care of them.
Hold on to your wallets.
That's sexy.
Here comes Britain's most shameless gold diggers.
I'm a professional gold digger. Money makes me happy.
Will you pay for all this? Because obviously I don't carry cash.
Experts in the art of rinsing men for cash.
I'm not going to pick up the bill, am I?
Tonight.
Is there someone there who's worth me coming?
A professional sugar baby hunts down the rich and famous.
Rich men love pretty girls.
We meet a self-styled gold digger
Get paid now.
who hit the jackpot when she nabbed a millionaire.
And he's got a large penis, which helps.
And like bees to honey, the ladies who swarm around one rich man.
That one's done it for me.
Who's loving every minute.
Dating 4 or 5 women at all times.
It was money that attracted me to Mark, and that's the God's honest truth.
Recently separated after 22 years of marriage, Mark's back to playing the field. And when you're as loaded as he is, you can get the youngest, hottest babes in town.
I like to have a pretty thing on my arm, purely because it makes me feel great.
Mark might be lapping up the young lovelies, but the ladies on his arm have their own agenda. As close friend Towie's Abby Clark is all too aware.
The type of women that are attracted to Mark, as a protective friend, I would say are gold diggers.
But Mark couldn't care less.
I have lots of girlfriends. I enjoy the company of women. People might think I'm a Lothario or a player.
Mark is the ladies' man. Every single one of my friends that have ever come round and met him, he has tried it on with them.
I'm dating a few women at all times. Let's say 4 or 5.
Part of the interviewing process is sex. They will engage in orgies, group sex, menage a trois, as they climb the social ladder from poverty to wealth, similar to when men try out for a sports team. You do whatever is asked of you to be on the team. Women get butt implants, breast work, Botox, invest in sexy clothes and lingerie to manipulate, brainwash, control men sexually. This has gone on since the beginning of time. When females hunt rich, powerful men, engage in volitional sex, participate in their own mistreatment because they don't want to get a job, they are complicit. They are not victims, they are volunteers. Sorting through intentions is almost impossible because a female will never tell a wealthy man, "I'm here for the bag."
My name is Bill, and I own one of the largest privately owned real estate companies in America.
What would you say your net worth is?
I'm not going to say my net worth.
My name is Brianna.
Bill and I met when I was working as a hostess. I wasn't looking for love, but I could tell he was interested.
Tonight, Bree and I are having dinner with some of my friends and partners. This group of friends of mine, they definitely speak their mind.
Yes, they do.
Bree, how old are you?
So I am 21.
Oh,
To me, age is just a number,
that's a huge age gap.
but our love is big.
Bigger.
Bigger than our age gap.
Maybe Bree is with Bill for his prominence and his money. Maybe she's a social climber.
She will present herself as naive, innocent, seeking love, when what she really wants is a check. There are parties where rich, wealthy men attend, and the ratio of women to men is 50 to 1. Young, attractive females in thongs and high heels with hair weaves, breast implants, looking more like strippers and porn stars, there to feast on the free food, the alcohol flowing, and the drugs, all looking to get on scholarship, a term used for being taken care of by a sugar daddy or a rich man. At 11 p.m., it's announced, if you're not fucking or sucking, you gotta go. And almost no one leaves, because they came for the chance to meet a rich, powerful man, and they're willing to participate in any sexual activities to achieve their goal. When these females play the game, then decide years later they will play the victim card, society loses. Real victims are ignored while everyone focuses on these fraudulent groupies posing as survivors. Females want to have sex with rich, powerful men. They want to participate in sex acts because they don't want to work for their own money. You don't see successful, educated women who worked for their own shit going on TV, reality shows, writing books on who they had sex with, and profiting from being a victim. Real victims don't seek fame and money, they seek justice.
So get it understood, boy. I am from the hood, boy. Came up from the dirt, self-made hustler. I'm a bee. I'm a bee. I'm surrounded by all these devil mouths. They talking about kale.
Every billionaire, multimillionaire, athlete, entertainer, media tycoon, music mogul, CEO, politician, the 1%, and royalty around the globe activate, get involved, help with this R. Kelly case. Why? Hate crimes against the rich and powerful are on the rise. A silent coup to overthrow patriarchy is happening as we speak. Your life's work, your legacy, your empire, your bag is on the line. If you let R. Kelly go down without a fight, you will be next. To stop them, you must make sure they are not successful taking down R. Kelly unlawfully. This will energize them, make them more powerful than ever before. Time's Up, Me Too, Mute R. Kelly, Surviving R. Kelly, Women of Color, and those that assisted them didn't form just to disband with R. Kelly. Me Too is already on HBCU college campuses, programming females into victimhood. With the largest female Congress in history, they are changing laws state by state to remove the statute of limitations on sex crimes. We need a checks and balances and addendums to these laws to make sure they are fair for men and women alike. In the federal court system, sex crimes are treated the same as murder, so there's no bond. You must remain in jail even if you're innocent of all crimes, just because you were accused. Any male having sex for the rest of his life is at risk. Anyone who has not been happily monogamous his entire sexual life can have their life destroyed by false allegations, including the LGBT community. They're killing you softly. This is a bloodless cut, internal hemorrhaging, and you don't even know you've been hit. These organizations collect millions in donations from rich, powerful women and from donations from females all around the world. You don't stop a successful operation. You find your next target. This lipstick rogue, radical feminist terrorism, they're coming for every successful man who has not been faithful to one woman. Your brother, your sons, fathers, uncles, friends, you are at risk. Every person who believes in our laws and constitutional rights as Americans must help, must engage, must get involved. Share my trailers for my docuseries with everyone that you know. Make it go viral, especially to radio, TV, newspapers, via social media. The millionaires, the billionaires, the entertainment industry, athletes, musicians, moguls, the media, etc., who I've been DMing, and you're watching all of my videos, I appreciate you, and I need you to share this video and the other videos about the docuseries with every wealthy person you know, every contact you have, every billionaire, every millionaire, every athlete, every musician, every entertainment mogul, everyone in media. R. Kelly is talking to Tom Mesereau and wants to hire him on his team. He needs a bag. His legal team needs a bag. There are 2,208 billionaires and 36 million millionaires. Surely R. Kelly legal fees can be secured below radar. No one has to know who pays. Just contact Tom Mesereau directly and see what he needs. Contact R. Kelly's legal team directly, see what they need. R. Kelly's intellectual property is invaluable, so you can easily recoup your investment. But you're investing in yourself, because if they're successful destroying him and his legacy and his empire, they will destroy yours next. They've cut off his finances beginning 2 years ago so that he did not have the ability to fight, so that he could not protect himself legally. I need every wealthy man in this country and around the world to lock arms, to cover this man, to put a financial hedge of protection around Robert Kelly so that he has all the resources he needs to fight this. Contact me directly via email or DM. My information is in the description of this video, and it's also at the end of this video. There's work we need to do. There's actionable items we need to put in place going forward. This docuseries must be aired all over mainstream media. It must reach the masses. I need media tycoons, Rupert Murdoch, Ted Turner, and every other media mogul to get in touch with me and make that happen. I need wealthy movers and shakers like Robert Kraft, Stephen M. Ross, Jimmy Iovine, Larry Ellison, Bob Johnson, Robert F. Smith, and others to get in touch with me, and let's get some actionable items going. Rich, powerful men are targets, and we must put solutions in place immediately. Every person that can reach Donald Trump or knows someone who can reach him, if you got his number in your cell phone or someone in his family, get in touch with them get these videos to him, get the trailers that I've put out earlier to him. He must be aware of this issue. We need the President of the United States to act stat. He needs to engage the FBI, Homeland Security, the IRS, and you put the full weight of the White House behind these acts of terrorism against rich, powerful men and against all men in this country.
I am from the hood, boy. Came up from the dirt, self-made hustler. I'm a beast. I'm a beast. I'm surrounded by all these devil mouths. They talking about kills. Some say I came from heaven, but I rose up from hell.
Me Too and Time's Up began pushing a narrative on America, demanding believe women. Called any female with a story a victim, a survivor, with no vetting. No person had gone to the police. They had no adjudication by a judge, and referred to the person that they were accusing as predator, pedophile, and other illegal names. If you dared question any female story, and you questioned any accusation that they made, you were labeled victim shaming or a sympathizer to a predator, or worse, a racist. And then you were bullied, researched, and terrorized by this cancel culture on social media. It seems like an innocent misuse of a word, but it's not. It was a deliberate, calculated manipulation, brainwashing, and programming of America. We saw them systematically use mainstream media as their weapon of mass destruction to label women victims, survivors. And anyone that came on there, they were pressured into using those terms until it stuck, until they normalized it. In this atmosphere of fear, there is terrorism. Victim implies a crime has taken place and that a judge has determined that there was a legitimate case, that there was a victim, there was a perpetrator, and guilt was found because evidence was secured. This is not a slip of the tongue or accidental. This is a deliberate attempt to hijack our judicial system, to circumvent the laws in the country, to use social media and mainstream media as a marketing tool to seek vigilante justice by rogue feminist terrorists. Repetitive use of the word victim evokes sympathy, compassion, and anger at who they say hurt them. For example, to call a TV show a documentary or a docuseries implies that it was fact-checked. It implies lie detector tests were given, mental health evaluations were given, vetting was done, and truth was secured. All salient details were presented so the viewer can trust what they are viewing. Surviving R. Kelly, when closely examined, had more fraud than fact. Actors and actresses were paid. They were prepped over a year with scripted dialogue. That's why you heard all of them using the same terminology. There was no evidence that was presented. The statute of limitations was up in the states that they were from. No cases went before a judge. Nobody showed a police report. Nobody had medical records. The timelines didn't add up. The stories couldn't be substantiated. There were blatant lies. There were lies of omission that permeated this fictional show. Believe these women. Believe black girls. Protect black girls. They shamed America, and specifically white America, into ignoring the rule of law, so that you didn't question, you didn't ask for evidence, you didn't dare question the female story. Most importantly, you didn't stand on law.
Some part of you has to have an opinion on just media and the people and what's going on right now. And what is your take on everything that's going on?
I mean, you know, I watched the whole DOCUSERIES.
You watched it? Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I watched the whole thing. And they're not telling the whole story.
Okay.
From Sparkle to Drea to everybody. They're not telling the whole story.
Got you.
They're just telling their survivor story of what happened, but they're not telling how they played a role in all of this to a degree. Because, okay, I'll just keep it real with you. When we left, we were working on our album as a public announcement, and we got a deal with Atlantic Big Beat. After that, we started working on Sparkle, which was one of the original members' wife.
Right.
Earl. Right? So we did it, and I planned on like saying, okay, well, let's just go this way with it. Earl wanted to take it to Kels, to Rock. I was like, it's not a good idea. I don't think this is a good idea. So at that point, he kept saying, no, it's a good idea. I'm married to her. It's good. We're going to get paid. Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I'm like, okay. So we did our demo. All of that. Did the demo, everything. I took it to him. He said, yeah, it's hot. But I got to do it myself. I was like, what you mean? He like, I have to produce it myself. Y'all can't have nothing to do with it.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And me knowing him, because they're gone now. Rick and Earl are gone. So I'm seeing him on an everyday basis, how he gets down. So I'm like, so I go back to Earl and I say, hey man, this is not going to end up well. If she goes down here and does this with him, it's over. Everything.
Right.
And Earl was like, no, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. You know what I'm saying? This is my wife. It's going to be good.
Yeah, it didn't end no good.
As soon as she went down there, she never went back. That's why she don't mention him.
Wow.
She never went back.
Wow.
And then at that point, it was like, he was destroyed. Just like you see in my story, he was destroyed. Wow. Because he didn't understand like why his wife would actually do that. But Rob told me, he said, hey, when she come down here, she got to sleep on this couch for 30 days to do her album. But she started off doing background vocals for Leah album. Because he was creating that at that time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
some of the documentary might be sensationalized a little bit for TV. True. We're just trying to have a clear understanding ourselves because we're all watching it. We know that the primary reason for TV is entertainment, and there are directors and creators and people that can move things around. So I guess we're trying to leave here with just based on you're the only person we know that knows R. Kelly. Well, Drea Kelly came before, and she had her stance on everything. But you're the person we're talking to now that knows some.
Okay, well, let me say this. I'll just start here, and we'll just break it all the way down. The things she's saying are true. Now, everybody's leaving out parts.
Got you.
Right.
Two sides to the story.
You see what I'm saying? So, when she came into the picture, she was a dancer. There was 3 other dancers.
Okay.
But they all were getting down. Everybody was it was what it was. So it's not like she didn't know that this was happening. She was a part of it. And then one day we was on tour, and then he just separated her. And then the rest of the dancers had to sleep in the bunks. She slept on the back. It was what it was. So she knew that.
Right. So the world doesn't know that R. Kelly interfered with that marriage?
No, because she never mentions her. And that's why I'm here now. She never even mentioned how she even met him. She met him because of me.
Okay.
I took the demo there and sat down with him, and he listened to it, and he's like, "Oh man, it's dope." Blah, 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 but y'all can't be a part of it. I'd never seen with my two eyes nothing he done to nobody underage.
But you might have had dealings with some of these people, and you feel like they might be reliable information.
Like when Sparkle says what she says, like, should the people believe everything that she's saying?
I mean, we're in the music industry, so it's girls everywhere, man. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not checking no IDs. I don't know nothing about this. And to be just straight up.
Fear of being labeled a victim-shaming, pedophile sympathizer, enabler, or worse, a racist for not believing black girls forced most of America, but especially white America, into compliance. The CEO of Time's Up at the time, Lisa Borders, resigned when her son was accused of sexual assault. She didn't rally support around her son's accuser. She wanted the law followed and his constitutional rights observed. She wanted her son to be presumed innocent in all 50 states. And yet, Time's Up and Me Too don't allow every man his constitutional rights. This has backfired for women. The CEO of Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, who is a billionaire, is pleading with men to not close doors on women. Why? Because as a result of all these claims against men who still control the power are now freezing women out for fear they will be next. The hiring, the promoting, the training, the mentoring of females by men has dropped 60%. That means this whole Me Too Time's Up attack on men is reversing all of the advancements and the accomplishments of the women's movements of the 60s and 70s. It is an embarrassment to the women's movement. In the United States of America, in all 50 states, the law is you are to be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law. You do not have the burden to prove your innocence. It is the burden of an accuser to prove your guilt. You should not be tried in the court of public opinion. You do have a right to your due process. You should not have your assets seized. All of these are covered under the 1st, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 14th Amendments. And yet, Me Too, Time's Up, Mute R. Kelly, and others that supported those organizations has violated every single one of those. Using social media and mainstream media to blast America with the terms like victim, monster, predator, believe women, believe black girls, violates law. It violates constitutional rights. It incites lawful behavior. Because with social media, people can target you. They can dig up research on where you work, your home, and they can have you cancel cultured simply for exercising your First Amendment right to freedom of speech. It creates an atmosphere of terrorism. Ignorance of the law does not absolve you of the law. Using fear and words to push the agenda of rogue feminist terrorists funded by rich, powerful women incites and perpetuates unlawful behavior. It violates the constitutional rights of all Americans. It breaks the law, and it takes the law out of the courts and into the hands of the general public, the court of public opinion. It puts the law in the control of the masses, which is illegal. Time's Up, Me Too get men fired, and then have these men replaced with women. They get a portion of the proceeds that are allotted that individual. For instance, when Les Moons was released, $20 million of his severance went to these groups, and a large chunk of that went to Me Too and Time's Up. They have over $30 million in donations. They are profiting from destroying rich, powerful men, all while they break the law in broad daylight. This is feminist domestic terrorism that has hijacked our judicial system and constitutional rights of every single American.
Oh man, Mr. RKELLY. To come to find out that him and my wife Sparkle was messing around was my greatest downfall.
Strange to you, like did he ever come on to you? You know, Robert, of course, he liked me. You know, he's a handsome guy. But I didn't want to match those lines, so to speak. You know what I mean? I'm there to do a job.
So you never had a relationship with RKELLY? No. That type of relationship?
No. And that's just, but me and Robert were real tight. We're really cool, like family.
Oh man, Mr. RKELLY. To come to find out that him and my wife Sparkle was messing around was my greatest downfall.
Me Too and Time's Up is funded by rich, powerful women. A lot of those women have jobs in mainstream media, and they all go along with calling females victims and survivors, even though that is an illegal term. In order for you to be a victim, you have to have had a case in front of a judge for the judge to decide, after looking at evidence and after the person that you accused was afforded their due process rights, which is the Constitution in this country, and then a jury or a judge has ruled that a crime did take place and that the person that you accused did in fact commit the crime, and you are in fact a victim. To use the term victim and survivor in mainstream media and put that all over the news denies any person that you've accused their due process rights, because you're reaching millions and millions of people. And the term victim is synonymous with crime. In order for you to be a survivor, you have to have survived something. In order for you to be a victim, you have to have been victimized by something. And if you're the only person that sees it or defines it as being a victim or a survivor, then you are adjudicating for yourself. You cannot break the law as you accuse other people of breaking the law. And to get on a public forum, whether it's social media or mainstream media, and refer to people as victims and survivors, you are breaking the law. Every single blogger, every single YouTube personality, every single mainstream media and social media person that refers to any woman as a victim or a survivor who has not had a case adjudicated by a judge and he ruled in her favor is breaking the law. You cannot refer to any female as a victim unless a judge has determined a crime has taken place. You cannot refer to anyone as a survivor unless a case has been before a judge. Nobody that appeared on Surviving R. Kelly had a case in the courtroom. No judge adjudicated the case. Therefore, no one is a victim. No one is a survivor. They all are females who are telling a story. You can't even say it's their truth, because we don't know the validity of the statements. We haven't seen evidence. We don't know their mental stability. It's a story, nothing more, nothing less. And until that story is vetted, until it has been legally processed within our halls of justice, it's nothing more than a story. And to refer to it as anything other than that is breaking the law. The Me Too movement is the greatest threat to the safety of young black men since lynching itself. When you destroy a young person's future with no evidence and deny them due process, you are basically doing what white folks did to our people for 200 years ago. Us too. Hashtag us too. I thought that was a very great comment. Me Too is the greatest threat to the safety of young black men since lynching. You're destroying men's future and their life's work with no evidence. You're denying them due process. Publicly saying someone is guilty without evidence creates a dangerous environment. These are the images that are all over social media. This is what people are putting out there that puts R. Kelly's life in danger. And nothing has seen the inside of a court. These images started circulating the minute Surviving R. Kelly came on. Lisa Borders, the head of Time's Up, stepped down when her son was accused because she wanted the law followed. She did not want to scream, "Believe women," when it came to her own son. You don't believe women, you don't believe men. In a judicial system, you believe facts and evidence. Men are now afraid to mentor women after this whole hashtag Me Too. The number of men who are uncomfortable mentoring women is growing. This current day terrorism, feminists, of Me Too and Time's Up has set the women's movement back 50 years. When Dream Hampton says they're abolitionists, they want to abolish the criminal justice system the way it is, she's saying we're vigilante justice seekers. We're going to take the law into our own hands. We are going to decide what is right and wrong. That is why they're circumventing the laws in the work that they do. They are ignoring the laws, breaking laws. They, in fact, are criminals.
Oh, I know you, and, you know, we are in this work together. We're on a spectrum, basically, of abolitionists, you know, of, like, wanting to abolish the criminal justice system as it functions right now.
And when you start talking about sexual violence in the black community, particularly if it's a celebrity, it immediately goes to you trying to take down a black man. If it's a male perpetrator, you're trying to take down this black man. He's successful. He was trying to buy NBC. He was doing, you know, whatever. I mean, these are people really believe that stuff, right? So
they're in the audience, yeah.
He wasn't. But you know, there's these popular narratives around, like, they're just trying to take this man down, regardless of the evidence that exists. And that's because we do. It is absolutely true. We have a long, horrific history of black men being disproportionately falsely accused of sexual violence in this country. That is true. We know that. We've seen it from Emmett Till to the Central Park Five. Like, we've seen it over and over again, largely with white women as the supposed victim. Okay, so you might have heard me say this already. I don't care about white folks.
Tarana Burke states very clearly that men, and specifically black men, are wrongfully accused all the time. She's talking about white women, and she's very clear because you hear her statement. She says white women as the supposed victims. So when it comes to white women, she doesn't believe their story. But when it comes to black women, she calls them survivors and victims. There's no room for them to lie. She doesn't even take into account the laws. She's very conscious about what she's doing. When it comes to white women accusing black men, she wants to stand on law. But when it comes to black women accusing black men, she's willing to disregard the law and just call every black female a victim and a survivor. She's consciously aware of what she's doing because she states it very clearly. White women are supposed victims. But when she describes any black female accuser, they're automatically a victim or a survivor.
And thank you, Color Change. Color Change is wonderful when it comes to corporate accountability. They will go right past you and target all your sponsors. That's how they got Bill O'Reilly off the air. And right now, yeah, thank you to the Color Change team. And right now, Color Change is supporting a campaign that you largely made happen, when you got Time's Up to sign on to this Mute R. Kelly campaign that you started as a hashtag.
Well, and I didn't start the Mute R. Kelly hashtag.
Okay, yeah, you didn't. I'm sorry, it was the sisters from Atlanta.
Yeah,
Will you say their names? Oh, okay. This is
Kenyette is from Atlanta, and I forgot the Oshadi. I think it's from Detroit or Chicago.
They're both in Atlanta.
They're both in Atlanta.
I filmed them both for I'm doing a docuseries about R. Kelly, basically about the women who've survived R. Kelly. And Tarana is in the docuseries. It'll be out on Lifetime in October. Thank you. So
we see in this video clip Tarana Burke brought on Time's Up to the Me Too, joining the hashtag Mute R. Kelly, which was illegal. We see the amendment rights that say it is illegal to seize assets of anyone. The government cannot seize your assets. This, they started before the docuseries ever came out. So based on rumor, based on gossip, based on innuendo, they began a Mute R. Kelly hashtag. That's illegal. These women are criminals. They broke the law. They took the law into their own hands. They circumvented our judicial system. They decided, we heard these female stories because we were sexually abused, we believe them, and now we are going to destroy this man financially. We're going to take away all of his assets, and we don't even have proof these women are telling the truth. Not one of these females has a police report. Not one of them had a case in front of a criminal judge. They all went straight to television and straight to a civil attempt and settled on a check with signing a confidentiality agreement, which is not an admission of guilt from R. Kelly. Most attorneys that represent you will tell you it's cheaper to settle than it is to fight the case in court, and the publicity will do more harm to your career. Robert was in a no-win situation. So a lot of times you cut a check just to make it go away. It's not an admission of guilt. So these females in their vigilante justice have decided, from what they heard from females, they didn't vet, they didn't give them a lie detector test, they didn't do mental health evaluations. They just decided, we believe your story because you're black and you have a vagina. So we're going to destroy this man financially. They're admitting to it in this snippet.
I think a lot of people tonight are saying, of course, we believe that we should follow the due process of law. But it is sort of something that feels like now you finally see how we felt when Christine Blasey Ford arrived after 30 years of amnesia, stepped out of 30 years of amnesia with absolutely zero proof, and went after Brett Kavanaugh. And we were told, you have to hashtag believe women. You have to hashtag Me Too, absent any facts.
Me Too and Time's Up, with their vigilante justice, are overthrowing our Constitution. They are disregarding our judicial system, trying men in the court of public opinion so that once it's saturated in the media and social media, their due process is out the window. The odds of them being able to have a fair trial are slim to none. This is guilt by accusation, trying to prove your innocence in a Me Too Time's Up era. This is an overthrow of our judicial system in their attempt to overthrow patriarchy. Mainstream media and social media are used as weapons of mass destruction, as a propaganda tool. This current day vigilante justice, domestic terrorism by feminists of Me Too and Time's Up, who are usurping our judicial system, bypassing our laws, bypassing our Constitution, is an affront to the American Constitution. Men no longer have rights. Wealthy men who have successful careers no longer have rights. They are under attack. Every wealthy, accomplished man has to worry if someone from his past will remix the events of the past with selective amnesia and come back and tell a version of their truth to the media and destroy their career with no evidence and nothing to corroborate their story. Men no longer have rights. Black men no longer have rights. The constitutional rights of men are being violated by rogue feminist terrorists. Time's Up and Me Too are breaking the law. They are engaging in criminal activity. And it is a concern for every single person in this country to be alarmed. Men are at risk. Your sons are at risk. Your fathers, your brothers, your uncles, your nephews are at risk. Every man is at risk and in danger, and every female that has men in their family should be concerned. This is a constitutional crisis, the likes of which we have never seen. Committed. You have to be able to prove in a court of law, in front of a judge, with a preponderance of evidence that you did a financial or economic boycott, crimes were committed, and you could substantiate that with evidence beyond reasonable doubt. It is a hoax, it is fraud, slander, defamation, vigilante terrorism to conduct a financial boycott, an economic boycott based on rumor, based on gossip, when the law in this country is crystal clear. You are to be presumed innocent. Mute R. Kelly broke the law unquestionably. The Fourth Amendment right states no court order, no government has the right to unreasonably seizure of property. Stopping R. Kelly's career, his music, his concerts is in fact unreasonable seizure of property. Music, songs, concerts, his job at Sony, his intellectual property are all physical and financial, tangible assets. That's why you copyright it, to protect your property. The Fifth Amendment right states no person shall be deprived of property, not have property taken without due process. Taking music off Spotify, cancel concerts, demanding Sony drop him, deprived R. Kelly of due process. It is the seizure of property. If it's illegal for the United States government to seize property, what legal right did Mute R. Kelly have to stop the concerts and the music of an innocent man in all 50 states in this country? In the United States of America, in all 50 states, you are to be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law. It is not your burden to prove your innocence. It is the burden of an accuser to prove your guilt. Mute R. Kelly broke the law. Mute R. Kelly are criminals. And anyone that hashtag Mute R. Kelly broke the law, they are criminals. Arithmetic. Kim Fox's plea to the public, January 8th, 2019, is irrefutable proof. There were no open cases, there were no crimes, there were no pending litigation, there were no victims. Mute R. Kelly hijacked our judicial process. They violated 6th, 7th, 8th Amendment rights of R. Kelly. They violated his due process rights to a formal procedure to ensure there's actually a real case, real victims, a real crime. They denied an innocent man his 1st, 4th, 5th Amendment rights as an American. Additionally, they violated the rights of all Americans to listen to his music and to attend his concerts and to support R. Kelly. The First Amendment rights do cover music. It is your right to hear all sides of every issue. It is your right to hear any music that you want and attend concerts. It is your right to make your own judgment without governmental interference and without control. You have the right to support anyone that you choose. Mute R. Kelly usurped government's jurisdiction. They violated every American's First Amendment rights to attend concerts, to listen to music, and to support R. Kelly, to have access to R. Kelly. If anyone supported R. Kelly, demanded to listen to his music, demanded to attend concerts, demanded their First Amendment rights as Americans, they were cyberbullied. Accounts were reported. They were called R. Kelly sympathizers, enablers, pedophile sympathizers. They were threatened, harassed. They lost jobs, forced to shut down and block their social media accounts, forced to start new pages because they wanted to be law-abiding citizens and presume R. Kelly innocent.
Courage or consent to Mr. Pullup grabbing my face, kissing me, or grabbing my backside. I was there at the event covering the boxing match as a professional member of the press. Kissing a woman on her lips without her consent and grabbing her is not acceptable. Later that night, a friend invited me to an after party. There was an opportunity to interview more fighters, and therefore I decided to go. Mr. Pullup did not join until the very end of the night. He acted like nothing happened, but later at the party, he asked me to remove the kiss from the interview. I did not remove it, and instead I posted it, because I wanted people to see what he had done to me. What he did to me was disgusting.
MTV has a show on called 16 and Pregnant, which has been on the air since 2009. It has a handful of 16-year-olds who have auditioned for the show, who are pregnant to be on the show. It does not encompass all 15 and 16-year-olds who are pregnant, and it doesn't even talk about the 16-year-olds and 15-year-olds who are having sex and who have not become pregnant. They've just taken a small sample of the 15 and 16-year-olds that came into their purview and did a show around them. Other related shows, Teen Mom 2, Teen Mom 3, Teen Mom Young and Pregnant, 16 and Recovering, are other shows that are on. You have MTV, Viacom, CBS, domestic media networks. Teen Mom, Young and Pregnant, 16 and Recovering. All of these shows have been on the air, as you can see, first episode, June of 2009. Yet we don't see Me Too and Time's Up going after these networks for airing this. 15 and 16-year-olds, according to Me Too and Time's Up, cannot consent to sex. So, in the eyes of Me Too and Time's Up, a 16-year-old that's pregnant, there's a crime involved. Yet, they're not investigating these females to see who they had sex with and going after those males. Because in order to be pregnant, you have to have had sex. They're not concerned about these 16-year-olds. They're only concerned about rich, powerful men who may have allegedly had sex with someone under the age of 18.
But he kind of took me under his arm and nourished me in many ways.
You write in your book, you're 14. Elvis would take me into his bedroom, and then we would kiss long, deep, passionate kisses, and his caresses would leave me weak with desire.
Yeah?
When you had trouble getting up for classes, Elvis gave you Dexedrine. First time you'd seen pills.
I didn't know what was going on as far as, pills or what they were, sleeping pills. I mean, he gave them to me to be helpful.
What do you think attracted a 24-year-old star to a 14-year-old inexperienced? Or am I telling you just what attracted him to you?
The inexperience, yes. I think Elvis had been around Hollywood already. He had already seen Hollywood, quote-unquote, starlets. So I think in his own mind, he thought, well, I'll just be with someone and teach her as it comes.
And during the day, you got up and went to high school. Came home in the afternoon. You said sometimes you'd crawl into bed with Elvis at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and he was just getting up and didn't even know you were gone.
Mm-hmm. I worked that out.
And then you stayed up most of the night?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And took pills to go to sleep?
I had to, because we got home so early in the morning. He would sleep until 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Elvis was 24, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did your parents allow a 14-year-old teenager baby to be with this then superstar of...
It was not easy on my parents. First of all, it was just an innocent meeting. And of course, I was excited and I was reluctant because I didn't think they'd ever let me go. But it was just a one-time opportunity. That's all they thought it would be. I never expected him to ask me back. They never expected him to ask me back.
But Elvis did ask you back, and you saw him again and again. And you would get home very late at night and be exhausted the next day when you had to go to school. Mm-hmm. And your parents let you go again and again.
It was a very protective relationship from the very beginning. I don't know what it was about him, but he kind of took...
There are RKELLYs in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our schools, in our churches. He represents a thing that we can't touch, we can't stop. We cannot get people to pay attention to the plight of sexual violence against Black and brown girls. And RKELLY is a perfect example of it. The issue is not just about RKELLY. The way that he makes his money is through his music and through performances. If we continue to support him, he uses that money to the detriment of these Black and brown girls that he's been preying on for 20 years. And it's about making sure he doesn't have the resources to do that, but it's also because he symbolizes a greater thing. There are RKELLYs in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our schools, in our churches. He represents a thing that we can't touch, we can't stop. We cannot get people to pay attention to the plight of sexual violence against Black and brown girls. And RKELLY is a perfect example of it.
2002 allegations, resulted in a 2008 trial where Mr. Kelly was acquitted. Decades later, there were rumors of a cult. The investigators went to the home and found nothing, so this was unsubstantiated. As of February 2019, Mr. Kelly in all 50 states was 100% innocent, and Kim Fox substantiates that when she does her press conference. In the eyes of the law in all 50 states, R. Kelly and every American is presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law. Evidence from 1994 says there was a marriage license and an annulment that's sealed, but none of those documents were ever verified or validified. If any of these documents are legal, that has to be proven in front of a judge in a court of law. We also hear there were settlements out of court, signed NDAs. Again, nothing has been verified. Who signed the checks? Who made these agreements? We know that a star of R. Kelly's caliber does not deal with all of his financial matters. In 2008, there was a trial, and he was acquitted. So for all purposes based on American law, Robert Kelly was 100% innocent of everything as of January 2019.
The recent allegations against entertainer R. Kelly and the recent Lifetime docuseries are deeply, deeply disturbing. It is our job here at the Cook County State's Attorney's Office to investigate claims in the interest of justice and of public safety. I'm here today to encourage victims of sexual assault or domestic violence related to these allegations to please get in touch with our office. Please come forward. There's nothing that can be done to investigate these allegations without the cooperation of both victims and witnesses. We cannot seek justice without you.
This is textbook terrorism. Because it's on U.S. soil, it is domestic terrorism. And because it took place by feminists, it is domestic feminist terrorism. It violates our First through Eighth Amendment rights of all Americans and R. Kelly to mute an innocent man's music, to stop an innocent man's concerts, to bully, to harass anyone that supported this man without a victim, without a court of law, without a court order, without a judge, without evidence, is illegal in the United States. Mute R. Kelly broke the law. They committed terrorism. They incited unlawful behavior of others when they decided to hashtag Mute R. Kelly and bully people into doing that. They incited illegal behavior when they demanded others join them in their illegal acts. To break the law, to violate constitutional rights, and to deprive Robert Kelly of his due process. With zero evidence, zero judges, zero courts, zero victims, zero crimes, zero due process, Mute R. Kelly took the law into their own hands. Their vigilante, rogue, feminist, domestic terrorism has taken over the United States and overseas. We are in a constitutional crisis.
At the heart of the 14th Amendment is the definition of citizens in America. It is through this definition that all the rights we cherish are granted and defended.
The right to have rights.
And under the law, everyone in America gets equal protection.
Was made for you and me.
My fellow Americans, this is a problem which faces us all.
We talk about equality a lot in America. We talk about justice. The 14th Amendment was intended to make that vision real.
The 14th Amendment is a promise. of equality for all.
No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States.
It says we are all deserving of empathy and dignity.
I'm scared, but I'm gonna stay, 'cause I'm tired of running.
Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction
The equal protection of the law. I'm just gonna wait.
The founders wrote life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They made that promise.
This fight is for a more perfect union.
When the second founders wrote the 14th Amendment, they put the word equal into the Constitution, another promise.
This is why we're here. To tell America's story. The story of the 14th Amendment.
I'm gonna be saved.
Due process is a requirement that legal matters be resolved according to the established rules and principles. Due process simply means the law must be followed. Your rights must be protected. Under procedural due process, you have the fairness of the procedures used to enforce the laws. Under substantive due process, you have fairness within the laws themselves. That means the laws to enforce the law and the laws themselves must be protected for the individual. There are two types of due process. The first is procedural due process, which is based on principles of fundamental fairness, which addresses the legal procedures that are required to be followed at the state and federal level. Substantive due process is principle allowing courts to protect certain fundamental rights from government interference, even if procedural protections are present or the rights are not specifically mentioned elsewhere in the U.S. Constitution. Within the due process law, you have entrapment, you have prosecutorial misconduct, you have the need to have proof, the burden of proof, and presumptions, like the presumption of innocence. You also have clarity in criminal statutes and void for vagueness. And the steps within the due process are investigation, charging, initial hearing and arraignment, discovery, plea bargaining, preliminary hearing, pretrial motions, and trial. All of these steps and more are a part of the due process rights. Fraud is the wrongful or criminal deception intended to result in financial or personal gain. In law, fraud is intentional deception to secure unfair or unlawful gain, or to deprive a victim of a legal right. Fraud can violate civil or criminal law. It may cause no loss of money or property or legal right, but still be an element of another civil or criminal wrong. The purpose of fraud may be monetary gain or other benefits. Under the First Amendment, every American has the right to free speech. You have the right to attend any concert. You have the right to listen to any music. In the Mute R. Kelly campaign, as a result of a fraudulent television show, Surviving R. Kelly, Dreamhampton, Me Too, Time's Up, all conspired to deny every American that is a fan of R. Kelly their due process, their First Amendment right to listen to his music, to attend his concert, to stand by his side. If anyone defended him, they were labeled a pedophile sympathizer, an enabler. That is to deny millions of people their First Amendment right. The Fourth Amendment states every person has a right to secure their persons, their home, their effects, their property. No one has a right to unreasonable seizures or searches, and this shall not be violated without a warrant. Every person has a right to protect what they own: their job, their personal effects, their property, their intellectual property. The Fifth Amendment states, no person shall be held to answer for an infamous crime unless indicted by a grand jury. No person shall be the subject of the same offense twice, and no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The Sixth Amendment states, every person has the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury, a jury who has not been swayed, a jury who has not been previously influenced. And they have a right to be informed the nature and the cause of the accusation. That is everyone's Sixth Amendment right. The Seventh Amendment states, every person in the United States that is a citizen has a right to a fair trial by jury. That right shall be preserved. No fact shall be tried by a jury other than in a court of the United States. The Eighth Amendment says no person shall have excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. When Robert Kelly was brutally, savagely destroyed in the court of public opinion without any evidence, this was a violation of his Eighth Amendment right. It was cruel and unusual punishment because no one had a case in court. No one had adjudication by a judge that said a crime had been committed. No one had even gone to the police. It was a violation of the Eighth Amendment rights of R. Kelly and of all his fans. The Ninth Amendment says your rights are retained. That means every right in the Constitution is afforded to every American. Every amendment, every law, every right is retained by every person of this country. Any violation of that is a violation of your Ninth Amendment right. The 14th Amendment says all persons are provided equal protection under the law. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, property without due process of law. To deny any persons within this jurisdiction the equal protection of the law is a violation of the 14th Amendment. When I began this docuseries, August of 2019, the goal was to create a legal route for Robert Kelly to have all of his charges dismissed, to create reasonable doubt, and for him to win his case. I have systematically gone through every legal argument that will be made in the court of law before the judges at the state and federal level. And I have created a legal avenue using the law as my basis to make sure Robert had a great possibility that all charges must be thrown out at the state and federal level, that reasonable doubt is created with the judge and the jury. Robert was attacked with legal arguments, with legal charges, within a legal system, state and federal charges that can cost him his life, that has already cost him his career. The goal of my documentary, which is based on fact and is based on law, was designed with the single intent to get Robert Kelly out of this legal mess, to argue legal points in a court of law so that he could win at the state and federal level. You don't win a legal fight with an emotional argument. You win with legal arguments at every point of discussion. Whatever they say, you have to do the work legally and come up with a legal argument to win. This is what I've worked on since January of 2019. Devising a legal argument, a legal route for Robert Kelly to win in New York, Chicago, and in every other case that comes up at the criminal and the civil level. You must create reasonable doubt. You must follow the law to help Robert out of this situation. I have adhered to that since day one, and I have created this docuseries, my docuseries, specifically with that end game in mind. Get Robert out of this legally. Kim Foxx and the FBI have presented a strong legal argument, and they have done so within the legal system, within the courts. Robert will not get out of this by yelling and screaming and running up and down the streets and making emotional pleas to anyone. You have to have a legal argument that can be presented in a court of law before a jury in order for Robert to win this. Since August of 2019, I have been using every information, every key point that I got from their argument, and I have found the legal basis to be able to counter that in a court of law. This documentary that I wrote and directed and produced, August of 2019, has been systematically, strategically designed with that one end goal: win in a court of law. Win by having all charges thrown out. Win by creating reasonable doubt. Win by using the law to argue the law. This is a legal problem for Robert Kelly. It demands a legal solution. It demands that you look at it from a legal point of view. You dissect it from a legal perspective, and that you argue it with strong legal points using the law. I have sent this documentary to Robert Kelly back in 2019. I have sent it to his lawyers, his legal team, and I have made sure that the key people that can help Robert have this information. I have also been sending it to rich, powerful men who can help Robert, people in the entertainment industry, and others who I feel can benefit Robert. This is a legal problem. It requires a legal solution. And I have been working systematically since day one to create legal avenues for Robert to have all of his charges thrown out, to have his case dismissed, to win within a court of law. Based on the work that I've done, based on every key point that I have looked at in what I consider to be the problem areas, I believe there is high probability all charges can be thrown out. By law, all charges must be thrown out. I believe the argument that I presented in this docuseries, that I have strategically laid out one segment at a time. Segment 1, we talked about Tucker Carlson and the women's movement. 2 was Kim Fox. 3 was Avenatti and the mainstream media. 4 was Mute R. Kelly. 5 was groupies. 6 was rich, powerful men being targets to overthrow patriarchy. And then 7, I focused on surviving R. Kelly. 8, I focused on Me Too and Time's Up. And then I concluded with all charges must be thrown out based on the law. I have laid out step by step, segment by segment, why following the law, based on the law in the United States, all charges must be thrown out against Robert Kelly at the state and federal level, because it is law. I followed the law. I strategically argued strong legal points and backed it up with the law and backed it up with the evidence. I presented the evidence in the video, and I also presented the law-based argument so that his lawyers, his legal team, and Robert himself understood you can win this case. By law, all charges must be thrown out. By law, there is enormous reasonable doubt for Robert to win his case. That was the goal of me putting together this docuseries, to help Robert win at the state and federal level. I have copyrighted every bit of this docuseries, all segments, and the copyright has been filed back in 2019. I own all the rights to this documentary. It is my intellectual property. It is my strategic thinking that devised every argument, and it has been legally copyrighted.
At the heart of the 14th Amendment is the definition of citizens in America. It is through this definition that all the rights we cherish are granted and defended.
The right to have rights.
And under the law, everyone in America gets equal protection.
Was made for you and
My fellow Americans, this is a problem which faces us all.
We talk about equality a lot in America. We talk about justice. The 14th Amendment was intended to make that vision real.
The 14th Amendment is a promise of equality for all.
No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities
Of the citizens of the United States.
It says we are all deserving of empathy and dignity.
I'm scared, but I'm gonna stay, 'cause I'm tired of running.
Nor shall any state deprive any person of life,
Liberty or property.
nor deny any person within its jurisdiction
The equal protection of the law.
I'm just gonna wait.
The founders wrote life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They made that promise.
This fight is for a more perfect union.
When the second founders wrote the 14th Amendment, they put the word equal into the Constitution, another promise.
This is why we're here. To tell America's story. The story of the 14th Amendment.
I'm gonna be sad.